The Third Secession War was the tamest of the four. The great houses were at their weakest during this period, following the apocalyptic devastation of the First and Second Wars. Despite this, they remained unwilling to relinquish their fight for the lordship of the Star League. The fighting during this time was low scale, with houses fighting for individual planets for resources and technology. It was during the later half of this war that the Wolves Dragoons made their first appearance in the sphere. They presented themselves as mercenaries, offering their services to the great houses. In reality, they were an advanced clan scouting force sent to assess the capabilities of each house in preparation for a future invasion. The Dragoons made their rounds through all the houses, beginning with House Davion as they first appeared within Davion's space. After serving them for a time, the Dragoons refused to renew their contract and moved rimward or south to serve the Capellans, and continue with a similar manner with other houses. This could be a story of its own. Finally, the Wolves Dragoons arrived at the service of the Dracoon's Combine. During negotiations, the Dragoons set a non-negotiable stipulation: they would not attack any of their previous employers. Since the Dracoon's Combine was the last great house they had yet to serve, they accepted a defense and training contract, during which they trained the new Ryukin regiments in their tactics, though apparently they did raid a Davion world. However, it was during this contract that their deep-seated hatred for the Combine began. Grieg Samsonov was the warlord of the Galadon district, and Anting, the planet where the Dragoons were primarily assigned to, was within the Galadon region. Samsonov sought direct control of the Dragoons, who were possibly the most effective fighting force in the entire Innisphere at the time. As such, whoever controlled the Dragoons potentially controlled the entire Innisphere. Jamie Wolf refused his demand, earning the warlord's ire. At the behest of the coordinator, Grieg devised a plan to tarnish the Dragoons' reputation, ensuring that no one but the Combine would be willing to offer them contracts. Samsonov planted loyal subordinates within the Combine forces working closely with the Dragoons to discreetly sabotage their operations. Samsonov's enmity towards the Dragoons led him to overextend his operation. The coordinator had ordered him to damage the Wolf's reputation, but only enough to ensure that the Combine could keep them employed for an extended period. However, Samsonov took things further, displaying open disdain for the unit, spreading anti-Dragoons propaganda, orchestrating secret operations against them, and even accusing them of war crimes. This all culminated with the Dragoons abandoning their posts and regrouping at Misery to wait out their contract's deadline. Using their withdrawal as a pretext for a breach of contract, Grieg reported his version of events to Takashi Kurita, who then ordered their destruction. The Ryukin regiment was dispatched to eliminate their former teachers, but ultimately failed, and the Dragoons managed to escape. A year later, during the wedding of Hans Davion and Melissa Steiner, the Wolves Dragoons clashed with the Dracoon's Combine once again. During the event, Jamie Wolf threw the swords of Minobu Tetsuhara, a close friend who had commanded the Ryukin during their training under the Dragoons, at the feet of Takashi Kurita, publicly humiliating him and exposing the truth about the treatment in the Combine employment. Takashi responded by claiming it was a misunderstanding caused by Grieg Samsonov, but Jamie refused to accept this. By this time, Takashi's mental state had already deteriorated significantly. When Hans Davion initiated the Fourth Secession War, Takashi made it a high priority to destroy the Dragoons, who were employed by Davion and stationed in systems bordering the Combine. Wolf had specifically requested to have his company stationed at the border so he could wage his personal war against the Combine. He reorganized the remnants of his company and stationed them on 3 planets. Delta and Beta regiments were positioned on Wapakoneta, Gamma and Epsilon on Harrow's Sun, and Alpha, Jamie's own command, on Glenmora, though Jamie had not returned from the wedding to personally lead at the start of hostilities. Though the Combine was also being attacked by the Lyrans on their Spinward or eastern border, Takashi focused entirely on trying to destroy the Dragoons, much to the frustration of his generals. Over the next year, the overwhelming numbers of the Combine's Galadon regulars managed to defeat the Dragoons on all 3 planets, but at great cost. The Kuritan casualties were immense, and by the final battle, though they still had superior numbers, the experience pool was depleted, as the losses had been replaced by fresh graduates. Nearly a full year after the war began, both sides met for their final battle. On the planet of Crossing, Jamie Wolfe was forced to reorganize his company once again, reducing it from 5 full regiments to barely the strength of 1. It was here that the Dragoons made their stand, taking positions within the crater and fortifying it as much as they could. Against all odds, the Dragoons held their line for an entire month against the might of 4 full Galadon Regulars regiment. They were finally safe when their own Zeta battalion arrived alongside Davion's 10th Deneb Light Cavalry, driving off the remaining Galadon Regulars. After the battle, when the Dragoons assessed the situation, they found that only a third of their forces remained, with Jamie Wolfe's Archer and Natasha Kerensky's Warhammer being the only 2 mechs still left standing. Takashi Kurita was already humiliated during the wedding. The Wolf Dragoons escaping from what seemed like certain death was the final straw that broke him. When he received the report, he lashed out in rage. He unsheathed his katana and started to destroy anything in vicinity, while his generals and officials watched in silence. Takashi then turned to them and declared, "Death to mercenaries!" With this one single decree, mercenaries that were currently employed by the Combine found themselves hunted. The ones that were lucky enough to get away, while financially hit, were still able to see tomorrow. Those who weren't met horrible ends. Some were cut down during operations, thinking that the Kuritans were allies, only for them to turn to them and shoot. Others were put to death while they were resting, completely oblivious to what was happening, or were captured and executed while they were trying to escape. These were dark times for any mercenaries still within Combine space. That being said, there are some that managed to get through this time unscathed due to certain technicalities. One example is Amphibian Light Assault Group. They were mercenaries. They were not part of the DCMS, but they managed to keep their jobs, and more importantly, their lives, because they were considered corporate security. This was because they were not employed by the state, but instead by corporations within the Draconis Combine. The specific unit would be loaned to DCMS to be tasked to do things that regular DCMS officers deem dishonorable. This edict lasted for at least 2 decades and was only rescinded when Takashi's son, Theodore, took power and implemented widespread reforms across the entire Combine. Not gonna lie, I thought there would be a lot more stories or just lore in general that's relevant to this whole death to mercenaries thing. But there isn't. It was basically a footnote, really. I had to make some things up a bit, just spice things a bit, you know? Like, this is like a perfect plotline for like an Order 66 style story, you know? Like, we follow a bunch of mercenary group from the beginning when they were working the Combine, and, you know, maybe they even formed friendship with, you know, the Combine characters. And then this whole thing happened, and then there's like a main conflict right there for the story, you know? Between, you know, the friends they made and the orders and the everything, you know? That's like a full story right there. But there isn't. It's basically just a footnote. Maybe there is a story I miss. If you're wondering how I do my research, like, I go to Sarna, then I go to the, you know, relevant pages on whatever I want to do a video about, and then I check the sources, the bibliography, yes. You know, check the books and then read them myself, see if there's anything that was cut out in the page or just not mentioned. I did in fact miss some things. Shrapnel 12 apparently has more info about this. It says right here on the page, but I somehow missed that. I was looking for the bibliography, okay? Not for yellow box. Who looks for a yellow box? Anyway, this is what Shrapnel 12 has to say about death to mercenaries. It seems that the edict, or at least an early version of it, was already in place by December 3028, but it only applied if they found any mercenary in battlefields. Most DCMS commanders were actually against the decree, and it seemed to be a dishonorable action to backstab what would be allies at the time. Most actually just ignored the order. It was actually Combine civilians that took the most action against mercenaries. They, with some help from any local governments that wanted to uplift their standing within the Combine, would stage protests and vandalize any mercenary camps on Combine planets. Some mercenary commands had some foresight and left immediately, like the McGee's Cutthroats. Others, like Helmut's Hermits, who were captured by the Lyrans, refused all repatriation offers. It was only after the Dragoons escaped when the decree applied to mercenaries within Combine borders. The office in charge of liaison duties, the Professional Soldiery Liaison Office, was immediately abolished, and the ISF gave any mercenaries until the 1st of January 3030 to leave. Those that didn't leave in time were hunted. Officially, the decree lasted until 3052, but actually lasted only a decade. In the 3030s, Theodore Kurita had already begun to hire mercenaries again in secret. When the War of 3039 began, these mercenary units were sent to strike Davian forces in the rear, which completely stalled their advances. I think this is the Dragon's Gambit DLC for MechWarrior 5. Following the war, with the support of ISF Director Subhash Indraha, limited mercenary hiring was allowed. But since Takashi was still the coordinator at this point, this was kept somewhat a secret. Theodore had the PSL, the liaison office, re-established and had any contracts be filtered through a company, Matabushi Inc., which listed them as not mercenaries, but specialists and troubleshooters. So I guess it's similar to how the amphibian group guys managed to sneak by. A number of mercenary commands accepted these contracts. Commands like Team Venom, the 7th Hells Brigade, the Dark Horns, the Gold Miners, Rolling Thunders, and Blue Lightning. All worked within the Draconian's Combine to garrison lesser worlds, hunt pirates, suppress insurgencies, and also do the occasional raid on the Federated Commonwealth. These units were still employed by the time the clans invaded. But that's that. Also, announcement. I'm partner now. Thank you everybody for letting me get to this point. With this, I'm opening up memberships. If you want to support me directly. But other than that, I have Discord that needs CPR, and also Twitch if you want to watch me stream games, but also stream here if that is your preference. But until then, take care, and I'll see you then. See ya. Bye-bye.